There's a word in the Bible we don't use very much anymore because it's sort of Christianese. As a matter of fact, it's a big word, so it's kind of scary and it's very theological. It's called sanctification. Now you might be thinking, oh, here he goes with something heavy. No, 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 no. You need to know about this because it's something that God has called us to. He's done to us. Sanctified means you're set apart for His purposes, His holy purposes. Now let me give you an example of how this worked. Over in the book of 2 Timothy, Paul is telling Timothy that in any great household there are vessels or pots and drinking vessels or whatever made out of clay, and some that are not made out of clay. They're made out of things like gold and what have you, but they're set aside for noble purposes, the things that are not made out of clay. Clay pots look like this over here behind me. These are just clay, and they're never able to be ceremonially clean because they absorb the impurities, and when they were done being used, the Jews tended to smash them, which is why you don't find a lot of them anymore. But if you come over here to this side and you look behind me, these vessels are made out of stone, which means they weren't used for just average dining purposes. They wouldn't put them out on the table and eat nuts and berries off of them. They were used for ceremonial cleansing. You can see these items right down here. These are used for ceremonial hand washing, where they would actually pour water on their hands. But they wouldn't drink out of those. They would cleanse out of those. And these items up here used for special occasions like feasts and seders and that sort of thing. But they would never be used for putting a hamburger on it, so to speak, because it was used for God's purposes. It was used to honor Him. That's what sanctification means. As Paul's told Timothy, in every house there are some vessels that are used for noble purposes and other vessels that are used for, as he called it, ignoble purposes. Not that they were bad, but that they weren't set apart to God's purposes. When you're sanctified, you're set apart to God's purposes. Like these vessels right here. They're used for His purposes, to honor Him, to glorify Him. They're pure and they can't be made impure. And God would use them for His purposes, as it were. So these things were found in a high priest or a priestly house here underneath Jerusalem in this tremendous ruin that we're standing in right now, and the other videos kind of attest to that, where the high priest would have a house that had a special closet full of these items used only for things that were used for ritual cleansing or ritual purposes. Well, that's what we are, except we're not into being used for rituals. We're into honoring the Lord, because that's what we want to do. But more than that's what we want to do, that's what God has set us apart to do, sanctified us to do. You're not a clay pot. You're like this. It's clean, it's pure, it's stone. And in the temple, they weren't stone. They were made out of gold and they were made out of silver, set apart to His purposes. That's you. That's sanctification. And now you know.